There we go. Okay, that is recording. So yes, welcome everyone. So the Student Futures team is made up of careers and skills development, placements, graduate recruitment and industry insights. And I'm Emma Hill and I'm joined today by Cheryl, who's another one of the career development consultants, and by Sharon, who is one of our employer engagement partners in the business school. So she organises all the kind of employer interactions that we have, employer talks and panel events and things like that. So also on the screen is how to contact us. So we've got our email address there, and just to let you know about My Future and the Student Futures Career Hub. So My Future is the platform you go on to book into any appointments with us, and the Career Hub is our kind of online resource, and I'll go into a bit more detail about that as we go through. So cameras and mics off, as I said, but feel free to put anything in the chat. I'm just going to go through my notes, make sure I've remembered everything. It is a recorded session. It'll just be recording my screen, so there hopefully shouldn't be any issues around GDPR and sharing your details. If there is, I will edit it afterwards, but the Event Society are hoping to put this up on their YouTube channel after that. So if there are any issues with that, just let me know, but hopefully it should all be edited so that no kind of details are shared. Okay, so that's a kind of outline of what we're going to cover today. So a brief look at the current employment landscape at the moment, then some kind of ideas around what you can do to stay employable, looking at what employers are looking for, the kind of skills and things they're looking for, and also the further support and resources available to you. So hopefully that is kind of what you were expecting. If there's anything I don't cover that you really want to find out about, then just let me know in the chat. Okay, first of all, I wanted to get an idea of how you are currently feeling about your future. So I've put up some pictures there, and I just want you to have a look at them, just take a few seconds, have a look at them, and see if you're drawn to any particular picture or you feel it represents how you might be feeling about your future at the moment. You can make a note of it and put, a reason why you're feeling like that, and you can put it in the chat if you feel comfortable doing that. And just to get a sense of where you are and how you're feeling at the moment. So I'll give you a wee minute to do that. So a few different ones coming through there. There's quite a range, and probably there is a lot of uncertainty at the moment for people. It is an uncertain time. There's a lot of change happening in the world of work and business, and so any of you that are feeling a bit uncertain, a bit unsure, that's perfectly understandable, and hopefully by taking you through a few things that you can do, you'll feel a bit more in control and a bit more positive about your next steps. Okay, so to look initially at the current employment landscape, and I've used that image because I think that's how it feels at the moment, that everything's going in every direction, everything's a bit unclear, a bit uncertain and all over the place. And at the moment, as you're probably aware, the UK is in a recession, the first time since the financial crash in kind of 2008, 2009. And that is sort of, you can see that in the number of vacancies that are out at the moment. So currently these are around 50 to 60% of what we would expect the current vacancy level to be. So in some ways that's quite a harsh statistic, sort of thinking, well, recruitment is actually half what we would normally expect it to be at this time of year. But in another way of looking at it, it does show that there is still recruitment happening and there are still opportunities out there. So not all kind of doom and gloom, there are still opportunities available. The graduate labour market has suffered. What we're hearing from employers is things that are they sort of usually do over the summer and this time of year to give students maybe experience, internship, work experience, taster sessions. Those kind of things are generally being put on hold. And the actual graduate recruitment, which usually kicks off around about now, sort of September, October, November time, that is being scaled back. So it's not stopping completely, because employers do realise they do need to invest in new talent and early careers. But they're saying that the numbers they're going to be recruiting are less than normal. So the graduate market has been impacted. Probably unsurprisingly, some sectors we know have been more severely affected than others. So arts, tourism, hospitality, events, recreational activities, travel, these are all the most sort of severely affected sectors. Sectors that haven't been affected so badly or are actually maybe growing are things like IT and digital, again unsurprisingly as everything moves online, healthcare, social care, and logistics and distribution. So again, more people doing online shopping, they have to get the goods from A to B. So those are the sort of areas where they're remaining strong or there is some growth. And you know, it's important to try and think, and I'll talk a bit more as we go through, about those kind of areas, and are there opportunities within those sectors that you could use your skills and your experience in. The furlough scheme, which was the support scheme the government put in place, is coming to an end at the end of October. So again, it sort of remains to be seen. It's unclear what will happen at that point. There will be some businesses that have had access to the furlough scheme, and that's been enough to keep them going until their business picks up. There will be others that it's actually just delayed the inevitable, and when the scheme comes to an end, they will have to let people go and possibly close their business. So it's a bit of a kind of wait and see on that side of things. We're changing the way we work, so working from home is here to stay. At the moment, I think the figures are around 20% of people are working from home, and that's much less than it was in the height of the lockdown. Obviously, you know, most people were working from home in some form or other. But it does mean that employers are looking for slightly different skills. So if they are going to have people working from home, then they're going to be looking for that ability to kind of be self-motivated, manage your time, and digital confidence, so be able to work on different platforms and be adaptable to new ways of working. Postgraduate study is up, so students who are maybe would have gone on to work after graduation are maybe thinking about doing some postgraduate study to perhaps delay that for a year until things settle down a bit. And other people who've maybe been on furlough or who've lost their jobs are sort of refocusing and retraining. And the government also just announced a Kickstart scheme, which is for young unemployed people. So if you have graduated and you find yourself in that category, make sure you are accessing like the job centre and the, you know, not just for the benefit side of things, but you will have access then to things like the Kickstart scheme, which are sort of 6-month paid placements for 16 to 24-year-olds. So something to bear in mind there. Okay, so all that probably feels quite big and quite overwhelming, and it's sort of out of your control. How businesses react, how sectors are affected is the kind of the big stuff. It's stuff that you can't control. So what I want to do is go on to focus on things that you can control, and they will help you hopefully take steps to make you feel more confident, more motivated, and a bit more focused about your next steps. So I love an acronym, and I thought this was quite a nice one. It's quite a positive one about sort of starting something and making a change and doing something today. So START standing for self-awareness, try new things, attitude, research and talk. And I'll go through and give a bit more detail about these. So self-awareness, and I love this quote, it is, wherever you go, there you are. And for me, that is essentially it. You know, the career decisions you make, the decisions about whether to do further study or go into the world of work, what job you're going to do, however you move through your career, you are the consistent part of that. So I think it's really important to spend some time on your kind of self-reflection and to get to know really what makes you tick, what your strengths are, what your values are, what you like, what you don't like, what gives you energy, what you enjoy doing. And some people are maybe already quite good at that, and they're pretty clear on what their kind of likes and dislikes are and the kind of environment they would like to work in. But for a lot of people, this stage kind of gets missed out, and you go to, researching companies, applying for jobs, doing your CV, and you're straight into that process without fully working out, is this the right thing for me? Is it a good match for me? Am I going to be happy doing this? So there's lots of different kind of resources which I'll go on to talk about that will help you in this. But quite a simple thing you can do is just to keep a kind of reflective journal as you go through maybe the next sort of 6 months, next academic year, and just keep a note of activities that you're doing and how they make you feel and what is it that you like or don't like about it. So it takes a wee bit of time, but it is worth doing. So if you were doing kind of group projects, or if you were set a task where you had to go and research something on your own, just take a note of that and reflect on how you felt when you were doing it. Is it something that gave you energy? Were you really excited to do it? Or was it something that you were kind of procrastinating about and putting off and then felt a bit low after doing it? And those sort of things will help you work out what kind of role and what kind of environment you would be suited to. Maybe slightly harder to do at the moment because a lot of the stuff we're doing is a bit more remote, a bit more removed, and you're a bit more on your own. But you can still gauge where you get your energy from and what kind of activities that you like doing. Also maybe look at things you've done before, so if you've had a part-time job, if you've worked previously or done volunteering, which bits did you like and which didn't you like, and why? What was it about it that made you happy or made you want to do that? And again, that's all just building up a picture so you will be able to make more informed decisions. You'll have a clearer idea of the kind of things that you'll be happy doing and that you'll want to do going forward. So these are some kind of self-reflection resources. For Edinburgh Napier students and graduates, you have access to My Future and to the Student Futures Career Hub. Now, as a graduate, you have access to these resources for up to 2 years after graduation. You'll just need to go on and re-register as a graduate. So My Future is the platform, hopefully you're all aware of that, but it's where you go on to make appointments for any of the support services, and you can join any of our events and workshops that are taking place. It's also got opportunities on there, so vacancies, so keep checking that because these are updated quite regularly. But if you click on the tile through to the Career Hub, that'll take you through to our other platform, and there's a whole load of resources on there on everything from sort of writing a CV, psychometric testing, interview skills, but also this kind of career assessment section. And assessment sounds a bit daunting, but it's not. It's just basically these kind of questionnaires, these little sort of tests that take you through, what your values are, how you feel when you do certain things, what kind of things you enjoy or don't enjoy. And they give you quite a detailed report at the end of that about you, about what kind of personality you are, what things you might be suited to, what kind of environment you would be most successful in. So they're quite good to take some time. They don't take long, maybe 10 or 15 minutes for each one. And you can pick and choose about which ones you complete, but they do give you quite a detailed picture of yourself, which is quite useful. There's Prospects there, which is a website we recommend for lots of reasons, but they've got a job match quiz on there, which is quite fun. It's quite sort of interactive, and they ask you lots of questions about, again, the things you like and don't like doing, and then come up with jobs that you might be suited to. Now, going back to the kind of thing I referred to earlier about the sectors that are kind of strong at the moment, it might come up with some jobs that, because you've answered in a certain way and you enjoy certain aspects, there are jobs within those sectors that actually you'd be really well matched to. So it's worth doing that and coming up with, a list of possible options, and it might just open your mind a wee bit as to things you could do beyond university. A few other ones there around kind of strengths assessment, personality assessment and values assessment, and these are all free at the moment, so yeah, worth going on to those and just having a try out and building up that kind of picture of you and your kind of personality. So within that, I want you to think a wee bit about the kind of skills. Now again, this is looking at transferable skills. So these are the skills that you learn or develop almost without realizing it as you go through your life. And there's always a kind of top 10 skills that employers look for. And at the moment, this is the kind of list that came from LinkedIn. Did a bit of a kind of mining of their job adverts across June and July. And these were some of the top skills that were coming out across all sectors, all adverts that were placed on LinkedIn. So they're skills that all employers value. And the exact figures are quite hard to come by, but I think it's between 1/3 and 1/2 of graduates actually go into a job directly linked to their degree subject. So hopefully that doesn't make you think, oh, what's the point? You know, I'm studying events management and I'm not even going to work in events. But it should highlight the fact that even before coronavirus, people were taking their skills and their experience that they'd gained from university and moving into a fulfilling career, but not necessarily in that sort of narrow field that their degree was in. So having a look at some of these, now this is kind of post-lockdown, post-COVID or in the COVID times. So some of them probably are quite understandable. That adaptability and flexibility, that is something high on the list of priorities for employers. They've had to flip completely how they do business and, you know, think creatively and innovatively about how they're going to deliver their business and how they're going to work in the future. So those kind of skills are really high on the list of ones that employers look for at the moment. Collaboration, again, if you're working remotely, it's really important that you're still able to have that teamwork element and work out how to do that and collaborate effectively. Communication is including things like digital communication, so being able to communicate effectively across these different platforms and not just in person. Emotional intelligence, so thinking about your own emotions, being sensitive to other people's emotions and being able to navigate that. Data literacy, so again, really valuable on being able to understand data, analyze data, and turn it into something useful to make decisions based on that. So I want you to take a minute and just have a look at those skills and pull out one of those skills that you feel you do have and just make a note of it. And then just write a sentence or two about how you think you've developed that skill. So is it something you've done at university? Is it something you've done in previous work, volunteering, a friendship group, something you've organised? So have a think about those skills in particular, the kind of top 10 there, and just reflect on one of them and write a bit about how you feel you've developed it. Now, if you feel comfortable, then feel free to put it in the chat box or just make a note of it for yourself. And you'll find it's quite a useful thing to be able to do when thinking about kind of applying for things or in an interview situation. So, you know, homing in on what kind of skills you have and how you've developed them. So I'll give you a minute just to do that just now. It's always the slightly daunting part for me where I have to sit in silence and just stare at my screen for a minute, but I'm hoping you're all writing away. One interesting thing to think about just in terms of transferable skills, when everything kind of locked down at the start of everything, the kind of need for healthcare workers went up hugely, whereas the need for hospitality workers went down. And there was a bit of a project where healthcare jobs were actually started to be advertised through hospitality websites and things, and they were identifying the kind of key skills about customer care, attention to detail, even kind of organising activities. All these sort of things could be directly translated into healthcare and social care work. So that was a real kind of example of how skills are transferable, and there's lots of different sectors that you can go into. Okay, so hopefully you've all managed to come up with a skill that you think you have and how you feel you've developed it and what kind of evidence you would provide. I'll talk a wee bit later about if you feel there's any skills gaps there. So you might be looking at that list and thinking, actually, there's a couple of things there that I know are really valuable, but I don't have those. And I want to find out about how I can kind of plug that skills gap. So I'll talk a wee bit more about that later. So moving on to the T of start. So this is try new things. And I've just put a few examples there of things that you could think about trying and getting out of your comfort zone. Now, clubs and societies is up there at the top because at the moment, you know, coming back to uni or starting uni, it might be a time to think about joining some new clubs and societies. And obviously this is an event society webinar, and I've been really impressed by the kind of things that they've been doing, and they really do offer a very, very sort of valuable experience if you join up. So definitely think about that. There's loads of different clubs and societies available through university, so something to definitely think about doing. But I mean, trying anything new will give you so much. So it kind of increases your confidence, it gives you experience, it's maybe that extra one or two things to write on your CV. And if you don't have a lot of experience, particularly in employment, then these kind of extra things will really highlight the kind of range of skills that you have. It can increase your network, so people you meet and contacts that you make through trying these new things could lead to eventually a career for you or an opportunity or a placement. You just never know. So it's about kind of widening your network and, you know, increasing the chances of opportunities. And we do know of kind of examples where the volunteering or part-time jobs can then lead to paid employment and those kind of career jobs. Part-time jobs in supermarkets, for example, you then go on to join their graduate program. So there's things like that where it doesn't always, it's not always that linear that it would lead to that, but you're kind of creating opportunities, but all the time you're growing in confidence, gaining extra skills and experience, and sort of expanding your network. There are, I mean, it's a bit more limited at the moment, obviously, with the kind of social distancing and how we're doing things, but that's where kind of online stuff can really work for you. So doing those kind of online learning opportunities. And it is important to try and do something. So when you're coming out the other side of this, if an employer were to ask you in an interview, okay, what did you do during that time, that you are able to demonstrate that you thought creatively, you adapted, you were what you've done during this time. Okay, the A of start is attitude. So I really like this quote about being a radiator and not a drain. And radiators are people who are kind of full of positivity, optimism and energy and warmth. And drains are, you can probably guess, the opposite of that. So there are people who are a bit more negative, who see problems, who find obstacles and find it hard to move forward. So you can probably all think of someone who maybe falls into both of those categories. And I would just like you to think a bit more about trying to be a bit of a radiator. I'm sure you probably mostly are. And it's not about kind of painting on a smile and being falsely happy and positive all the time. radiators are people who they understand that there are setbacks, there are problems, there are obstacles that come up, but they will much more approach it with a solution-focused attitude. So they will look to find a way around things, adapt things, learn from things. So if something didn't work out, not to beat themselves up about it, but to kind of learn from that. And employers really do look for those kind of positive attitudes. They do say that they can teach the kind of skills that you need day to day in their business, but a positive attitude can count for so much. So sort of check how you're reacting to things, and if you are in a bit of a negative mindset, try and switch that around a bit and try and think about ways around things or ways to improve things. And there's a bit around how you talk to yourself as well. I think we can all be quite hard on ourselves, but I would always say talk to yourself how you would talk to a friend. So if a friend came to you and something hadn't worked out, you probably wouldn't give them a hard time. You would listen, you would support them, you'd be encouraging. So try and be a bit more like that to yourself as well. And in terms of how you're coming across, so the main way obviously at the moment is online, it's virtual. So if you are online, think about how you're coming across. Try and be encouraging if you're on LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram. Be positive, post positive things, but also comment on other people's posts in a kind of positive way. Offer support if someone's looking for help or advice. You guys are students or graduates, so you kind of are on the cutting edge of things. So is there any advice you could offer or support you could offer at the moment? And look out for those opportunities, and you will start to be seen as this kind of proactive, positive person. Okay, so the R, research. And that is about taking the time at the moment to really, I said about doing that kind of self-research, self-reflection, but also to look into the kind of opportunities and options that there are for you. And it's easier now than ever. There's so much out there online. There's company websites, social media, LinkedIn. There's things like the Times Top 100, the Guardian 300, and they are kind of top 100 or 300 employers. So loads of different ways that you can find out about organisations. And it's a good idea to have a look across a few different ways. That the websites usually are quite maybe formal and can be quite corporate. Social media, if you're following a company on there, they're maybe a bit more informal. They show you a bit more about the culture or a day in the life of, what it's like to work there. So really take some time to do that kind of research at the moment. Alumni, so it's always a good way. LinkedIn, if you go onto the Edinburgh Napier page on LinkedIn, there's an alumni tab that you can click, and you can have a look at all the alumni from Napier who are on LinkedIn, what they studied and what they're doing now. So again, that might just help you sort of open up some ideas about what you could do, give you some examples of what other people have gone on to do and decisions that they've made, and that might help you sort of clarify what you want to do. And think about your connections, so speak to university lecturers, let them know if you're interested in a particular area and if they have any connections that would be good to make, and family and friends as well. So start to talk about what interests you, what you enjoy, what kind of role you're hoping to get, and you never know where that can lead. So yeah, do take the time at the moment to do that kind of research, and you'll end up being more informed and sort of more educated when opportunities do come up. And talk. So I made it talk, well, because it was the T of start, but because networking sometimes makes people feel a bit anxious, and I think sometimes when people think about networking, they think, oh, I've got to have this kind of slick elevator pitch ready, and I've got to be really confident and really proactive. But actually it's just about having conversations with people. So it's professional conversation, so it's about not thinking necessarily, okay, who's going to be useful to me, but just being interested in what people are doing, what they've done, what career decisions they've made, and asking questions, asking advice. So I have put networking in there because that's what it essentially is, but it is just about conversations and trying to connect with people in a professional way. So LinkedIn, obviously, which I've mentioned, is one of the key places to do that. And you know, if you are connecting with people on LinkedIn, just be aware of how you're coming across. Always try and add a comment, you know, if you're connecting with someone, a reason why you're requesting that connection. Be professional, be polite. Don't ask for a job, so don't connect with someone and say, you know, because I want a job in your company. But maybe open with, you know, I see you're working within this organisation. I follow them. I'm really interested in their work. I'd love to find out a bit more about what they do or what your role involves. And people are generally quite happy to connect with you and to give something back. You know, a lot of people are aware at the moment it's hard for students and graduates, so that kind of networking is really effective at the moment. There is obviously sort of industry bodies and sector skills councils, so just join those. The industry bodies usually have a sort of student discounted rate to join them, or some of them are free. Sector skills councils just keep you up to date. So in terms of professional bodies, you're probably aware, but for events, the Association of Event Organisers and the Association of British Professional Conference Organisers are both good ones. And sector skills is People First, which is kind of for hospitality, tourism, retail, and they just keep you up to date. There's quite a good blog on People First at the moment about transferable skills and how you know you can use those to cross different sectors. And look out for events, so attend any kind of webinars, workshops, networking events, anything like that, and don't be afraid to speak up. So it can be quite daunting, but if you have a question or you have a comment, you know, it's worth speaking up, and your name will get noticed if you're doing that a few times, and people might start to think, oh yeah, you're quite engaged, you're quite proactive, and you will be recognised. And make sure you're sort of keeping up to date with industry things. I know there's sort of a podcast, is it Events for Breakfast, and there's Event Grads group as well on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. So these are quite good places just to connect with people within your community. They're going to be your peers as well, and it's about making those connections and finding out what other people are doing and see if there's anything that you can do to help as well. So that's sort of all I wanted to cover. I would like you to think about something that you are going to start going forward from this. So if there's one thing out of those kind of areas that I've covered, what do you think you would sort of start after today? And again, if you feel comfortable enough, put it in the chat box. If not, you can just make a note of it and just try and take away one thing that you are going to start going forward from today. I've just put up there some further support and resources. So My Futures I've talked about, and Student Futures Career Hub. There's also Skills Development Scotland, which is the kind of all-age national careers support service in Scotland. They've got a lot of good resources on their website as well. Prospects, which I've mentioned, and Target Jobs, both really good for a whole load of resources, but also for vacancies. So they have internships and graduate vacancies on there as well. And then, as I'm sure you're aware, there's loads of online learning available. So LinkedIn Learning, they've unlocked a lot of their courses. Some of them you do have to pay for, but they are offering some free at the moment. Open Learn, which is Open University, Coursera, Future Learn, there's Facebook Academy, there's Google Digital Garage as well. So lots of different places that you can, if you sort of think there are some gaps in your skills, do a bit of research into those and think actually it's a really good way of, you know, of plugging that gap and helping develop those skills that I maybe feel like I'm missing at the moment. Okay, any questions I am happy to take. I will stop sharing my screen. I'll just stop recording as well at this point so that the questions aren't captured.